Yep. I feel like a language. Maybe I just don't have good posture.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the Greenburgh Central School District Board Meeting, Board Work Session for February 6, 2024. I call this meeting to order at, I banged first, 6:36 p.m. Okay, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order of business is introduction of new hires. Are there any new hires here tonight, Mr. Bakersfield? Okay. No? For those that are new and haven't been to a meeting yet, welcome to the district. Next order of business is policy review. Policies 5640, smoking, tobacco, and cannabis or marijuana use, and 8320, textbooks, library materials, and other instructional materials, have recommended updates. These have undergone administrative and legal review with no recommended changes. One of the policies is significantly different from our existing policy. So board members, this is the time for us to review and ask any questions or make any suggested changes before they are presented to the public at the regular meeting next week. So is there any, David?
Sure. So I don't have any comments on the smoking, tobacco, and cannabis policy. I think that's pretty straightforward. I am curious about the textbooks, library materials, and other instructional materials policy. It's replacing a policy that doesn't have anything on textbooks in it. Right? And a bunch of stuff for what the librarians should do in terms of maintaining the library, but not the textbook part. Now, I know that there's New York state law that says that the board is responsible for adopting textbooks, but we haven't, we don't normally have a process where we go out and, we put down the various textbooks that we think we're going to have for the next 5 years, and then the board votes on it. It's just folded into the budget, and the superintendent and the staff kind of work it out. And I think, if I understand correctly, we stagger things so that you do one subject 1 year and another subject another year, and by the time you get through a 5-year cycle, you've probably gone through various sets of textbooks. But the way that this policy is written, it says down towards the bottom of the first page, the superintendent will work with the district administrators and instructional staff to determine what textbooks should be used as part of the district's instructional program. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the board will designate the textbooks to be used. Textbooks, once designated, cannot be superseded within a period of 5 years except by a 3/4 vote of the board. So I don't know if that's 5 or 6 people, but that's certainly not what's been happening. We've been letting the administration mostly handle it, and it hasn't been a big political football. And I kind of like that. So my question is, what will change if we implement the policy as it is written here? Carol, are we going to have a bunch of resolutions by the board to approve each of the textbooks explicitly as opposed to having them folded into the budget? What's going to happen here?
In accordance with the policy, you would have to vote if you were trying to change the book within 5 years. If you didn't change, if you let it run 5 years, it would be your regular path that you've been on.
Okay, so now let's say that we're in the middle of a 5-year cycle for, let's say it's the math textbooks. And we determined that the math textbooks are one of the things we want to change to increase our performance on standardized tests and all that kind of stuff. So the administration says, oh, we need this new math program. So now we have to come back, we have to explicitly vote on the math program in a board resolution, and 3/4 of the board members have to vote for it?
Correct.
Okay, and is it required by New York state law that we do that, or is this just a recommendation from Erie One BOCES?
I'll need to circle back to that and look at that specific question.
Because
Okay.
I guess my concern with the actual timing of 5 years, not like being funny, but technology isn't even good anymore in 5 years, right? So your Mac computer So if we're waiting 5 years to actually look at new curricula that could actually be more effective for children, I think it pigeonholes us in a time frame that we should not have, we should have more flexibility. And also with the superintendent working with district administrators and instructional staff, I wanted, when we say instructional staff, of course, we're talking about pedagogues, but do we need to be more specific in who we're talking about? Because would the superintendent and the district administrators only deem the coaches, right, as instructional staff? What if they wanted to, you know, the pedagogue in the building wanted to be part of the committee? So I don't want us to put certain things in that we are not able to be more adaptable, flexible, and able to meet the needs of the students in front of us. So how can we word it that it doesn't just,
So what I'll do is I've highlighted that sentence and I will check, and when we meet again, before that, I'll have an answer for you.
and then when we talk about textbooks, are we also talking about digital platforms? Are we talking about the hard copies? Or, you know, what are we talking about when we're saying textbooks? So we need to be able to define these terms so that we, as a Board of Education and the school, understand fully what's happening.
Aaron, Trustee Jacobson?
So I have two questions. One, I'm assuming that the way this is written is that this does not include computers as instructional materials, because it doesn't specify that, but it also says are not limited to. And so I'm wondering, do we need to explicitly state that we are not talking about Chromebooks if we have a different policy for our tech? So that's my first question. And then my second question is on the second page, above where it says library materials, there's a sentence, students may be required to pay for lost calculators. Does that also need to include broken calculators, or is that a separate issue?
Is it in the first paragraph or the second paragraph under calculators?
It's the last sentence in the calculators section.
And we're talking about a specific type of calculator,
Or
right?
damage?
We're not just
Well, that's what I
saying
mean, like, it's only, because somewhere else it says about something being damaged.
scientific calculator or something
So,
like that.
if I may,
Library
before-
materials that lost, excessively damaged, or overdue, but it doesn't say that for calculators.
So if I may, before Trustee Along, I believe this section also needs some more clarification because, to your point,
Yeah.
it's the specific, I mean, the first sentence alludes to the specific calculators, which we've talked about, Dr. Michaeluso, and Ms. Raymond. The calculators used at the intermediate high school math level for NICED assessments.
Right.
So I don't know if we need to further define that in that section, as opposed to just a calculator you might use in fourth grade.
Yeah.
I don't know, so I think we need to address that section a little bit more. And to your point about the devices, I believe, and Trustee Warner, when we're in technology committee, I think next week, we can verify. I think there are other policies that apply specifically to the devices that are used in our classroom materials.
Right, that's why I just didn't know if we need to say that this is not that policy.
Because this is instructional materials, not the devices on which we
View them.
read them.
Right, but it also includes stuff that I feel could be kind of like online databases, ebooks.
That's the content.
So, right, it's the
So,
content
like-
on the platform,
Okay.
right?
Trustee Alon?
So my question is also about calculators and the disconnect between this says students are not required to purchase their own calculators. It is common practice to have a very specific calculator on a school supply list for families to purchase. So I think we need to fix this
Right,
or
so
fix the supply list so that they belong together.
usually, back in the day, the school district supplied the calculators. But I know some people are putting it on their supply list, so we do need to, because if we're supposed to be buying them as a district, then we should have calculators. And I guess that's why you would state if the district gives you the calculator and you misplace it or you break it, then we could talk about the parent having responsibility to pay the district back. If that's what we want to say.
So at this point, it sounds like we probably have too many questions to have this presented to the public next week. So while Ms. Melnick, you follow up on the one issue, I'm going to put to the board, do you want this to be reviewed by the education committee Do you want it to be followed up in the governance policy committee, or do you want to discuss it again as a full board to go into some of these other specific issues that have been answers from admin and legal? What's the pleasure of the board?
So, I mean, Dr. Macaluso, do you want to look a little bit over and, because we're going to have an education committee meeting on the 27th of February. So we could try to give some more information, but if we don't have appropriate information, we'll let you know by February 27th. And there is a definition for textbooks, means of a text or text substitute. So I guess I'm just worried that we're not thinking about the digital platform, the words, you know? Because textbooks are so much more than just the book.
And one more, I think the second part right after that might allude to the devices. But just ahead of that, if Dr. Macaluso, before it's discussed either in the education committee or back here, when we purchase textbooks, whether it's digital versions or not, is it, if it's a digital version, are we locked
Yeah, that's
into
fine.
X amount of years for that contract? If you could get that information for that discussion. Trustee Jacobson?
And it's just kind of piggybacking off of the supply list. I know there was some issues at the beginning of this year about whether the students were supplied planners or not by the district. I know the younger
Middle
schools
schools
are. Does that count as a instructional material?
Middle school.
Or is that a completely different thing and not really?
It's not curriculum per se.
Okay.
That's more.
It made me think about it.
Okay.
All right, we'll turn the meeting over to President Maris.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Huh?
She's gonna give you 2 minutes.
So now we're at reports and public comment. Did we conclude with our policies? Yes. Wonderful. 6:48 PM. Are there any committee reports? Yes, trustee Long?
It's the wellness committee has met, keep track here. Has met, let's see, 3 times since our last meeting.
In 2 weeks?
Yes. And I'm not going to go through the attendance, we kind of had regular attendance. And our progress has been on the request for proposal document. We went through all of it, we made recommendations for adjustments to it. We also created
The RFP for the food
for
vendor?
the food service management company, yes, thank you.
Not custom.
Not transportation, no. We have gone through the entire request for proposal document. We have spent a considerable amount of time creating mock-up menus that we'd like to see. We also started what is called the Schedule B part of the request for proposal, which outlines the specifications we'd like to see in our final proposals. We will meet again next week, Thursday, February 15th at 1 o'clock PM at Woodlands. Thank you.
It's a Thursday.
Is there any other?
Thursday, not Wednesday.
There's what?
It's Thursday, not
15th?
Wednesday.
Thursday, not, yes, Thursday the 15th.
Are there any other committee reports? Trustee Lawrence?
This is not a committee report, this is just upcoming meetings, and I have a question. So, the cut and dried things are that the technology committee will be meeting this Thursday, February 8th at 1 PM in the Little Theater. The finance and facilities committee will be meeting March 7th at 6:30 PM right here in the Innovation Lab. And then my question is, I have 2 meetings scheduled sort of back to back. We had this concerns the safety committee, and the safety committee met, and we determined that we needed a larger group to kind of look over the proposal of all of the security reports we got back from CLPS. And so we've scheduled something for Wednesday, February 7th at 5:30 PM, and this larger group, including, I think, police representatives, fire department, all those people who look at our emergency plan every year, to talk about that. And then the next day, we have on the books the safety committee meeting, That's the 8th at 5:15. So that would put us having a meeting following a meeting. Now, the board members are invited to the Wednesday meeting. So the question is, do we need 2 meetings or should we cancel the second one? Do you have an opinion? Do you have any availability of the safety committee folks?
So, the 8th, I can't make it all. So for me, it would have to be Wednesday. And then my second question, do we have all the stakeholders coming to this meeting? Because if we do not have all the stakeholders, then we need to reschedule.
Lisa, what does it look like for the 7th?
We invited the 3 safety, trustee Warner, trustee Washington, trustee Mayers, Dr. Iverson, Dr. Macaluso, Lieutenant Matthews, he'll be there. We invited Chief Maceda, haven't heard from him. SSOs will be there, safety security officers. We invited all the principals. Mr. Allen will be there, the dean of students.
This is Wednesday, 5:15.
This is tomorrow,
Okay.
5:30. I don't know that all of the principals will be there. I haven't heard from everybody, but everybody has been invited.
Okay.
Okay, Tracy, do you have an opinion?
You wanna know whether or not to cancel what?
Cancel
Thursday.
Thursday and just do Wednesday.
So you'll have 2 safety meetings.
I would cancel Thursday.
Okay, we'll do. So then the upcoming meeting is February 7th at 5:30 PM. It's a larger safety group, and it will be here at Woodlands. Thanks.
And just to note for, we said it before, but education committee meeting, February 27th.
Okay, trustee Valen?
Sorry, David, did you say the tech committee was in the Little Theater or Little Center?
Yes, I've got it scheduled for the Little Theater.
Thank you.
What time is that meeting tomorrow again?
Is it 1 or 2, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
5:30 PM.
No, the technology is in the day, right?
Yes, the technology committee is at 1
At 1
PM.
o'clock.
The safety group is at
Is
5:30
that 5:30?
PM on Wednesday.
I sent all 3 of you an invite to the safety one tomorrow.
What time did you say again? Sorry.
5:30 tomorrow,
Oh my God.
here
it's
at
early.
the Innovation Lab.
Okay.
We'll hold it down to Tuesday. Don't rush.
I don't know why I'm being so flexible.
You gotta speak up.
Sorry. Okay. Any other committee, you want to tell people when your committee meetings are?
I can say it next week.
Okay. So then we are done with committee reports. Sounds good. We do have our student liaison. Did you introduce him in the beginning of the meeting?
No, I did not.
Oh, great. We have Alan Panusse. Do you want to, I guess, introduce yourself for the camera? I don't know if you have a report tonight as well, but we have a student ex officio member. We met Gabrielle Parkinson 2 meetings ago, I believe. And then now we have Alan Panusse here as well. And just please introduce yourself, current senior.
Hello, my name is Alan Panusse. I am a current senior at Woodlands High School and currently enrolled in the IB diploma program. I want to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to be here and meetings to come. And I hope to gain insight and experiences that will take along with me in my journey to come.
Welcome. It is his brother. Yes. 2 years ago. Last year? 2 years ago.
2 years.
2 years.
Oh, it's been out 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
How is Ann doing? Okay. Good. Excuse me. All right, so does anybody have any questions? Do you have any questions for us?
Do you
Okay.
have any news you wanted to share?
I know for Woodlands, we currently had our Lunar New Year's celebration, and that was a great success. It was led by Dr. Yang, and it was a great celebration, and yeah. So it's good.
Wonderful.
Nice. It looks beautiful out there.
Yeah.
move on. I'm gonna, table my board president's reports. I am clearly rushing today. And we can move on to the superintendent's
Thank
report.
you.
Dr. Iverson.
Yes, I was going to mention the Luna Assembly today. It was absolutely gorgeous and just well planned. The costumes, the attire was just beautiful. Dr. Yang does a great job with that. But we are celebrating Luna activities all through the district, all at all the schools, and so they've been very well attended and just festive, as well as in the middle of Black History Month, we are having many activities happening all across the district in our schools, as we just recognize the various ethnicities and cultures in our very rich community and diversity, and it's just nice to see. I also want to make you aware that we closed, DEI survey ended on Friday. We are in the process of tabulating the results to see the responses and the stakeholders who did fill it out. I hope to send something home to the board in my weekly update Friday first to give you the tallies and then next steps. But thank you to all who took the time to fill out the survey. We really do appreciate you doing that. This is good, exciting work. We're ready to launch this work in DEI, and your interest is very, very, very noteworthy, and we're just excited that we did get a good number. So Ivy's tabulating all of that. I'll be able to send you that this weekend. We are beginning to mention our student spotlight profile. We're returning with that. The first one was posted last week, and another one will go up this week, and they will now can be up every week. Students from 9th through 12th grade, and not just seniors. So we're going to be recognizing and profiling all of our kids and looking across the district. So look for those on our website, and that's all I have tonight.
Okay. Any questions, comments? No? Can we get the report for the assistant superintendent, Dr. Macaluso?
You had to step out. You did tell me for 15 minutes.
We will circle back. We'll move on to you, the assistant superintendent for business, Mrs. Serena.
Thank you. The treasurer's report for December of 2023, we began the month with $40,728,554. We deposited $1,286,565. Dispersed $12,379,373. And ended the month with $29,635,746. The Office of the State Comptroller audit is finally done. They have finished with their second audit, which was time and billing for buildings and grounds for any contractors that have been here. And hopefully then they will produce both reports to us, the one on the tax certiorari reserve and the time and billing report. I am thinking that it will be at least 2 months before we receive those. We put out the RFP for the UPK CBO participation. That will be actually published on Friday in the paper, and that will stay out for 1 month to give people, companies, opportunity to bid on us. We do have a list of companies that we do send them out to, and some new companies, new CBOs that are out there. So we actually send it to them and put it in BidNet and in the paper. So hopefully we will get.
Question, what projects are in scope? Is the energy performance contract within scope of that?
No, this is the UPK.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, the UPK CBO, yeah. As far as the RFP for the construction manager,
Yes.
that RFP I just want to put out for the energy performance contract first, because that's coming.
Got it.
And then when we get closer for phase 2, then we'll put that out for a construction manager for that,
Okay.
which the costs for both of those are included in the projects. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
No, but you asked about,
Just quickly,
Trustee Valen.
can you put the RFP for the pre-K into our packet this Friday? So we can just,
Oh, sure, it's exactly the same one from last year.
I don't.
You want, oh, yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
No problem.
any other questions? I was gonna ask, I was gonna ask about the CBOs, but I think Dr. Macaluso probably has.
The community-based organization? Yeah,
I was gonna ask how many we have. I know we said three.
on the list, I know we added one, the new one that's on Central Ave, Vivi. And I believe on the list, Vivi,
On the corner of Central Ave.
Across from Trader Joe's.
across from Trader Joe's.
It's new. You
It's
can
new,
see
it's right on the
It's
corner.
not, no, it's fine. But is that it's not a house, it's a
No,
thing.
it's a business right there on the corner.
So with the CBOs, do the parents have to pay any money to that?
Dr. Macaluso, you'd have to ask.
Because that's very expensive,
That
that
heard it
location.
was. Well, I heard it's expensive there, yeah, too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, is it something that,
Well, I think we need to define what when we're talking about community-based organizations, usually the definition comes with some type of assistance for the community.
right,
So I think, I
That's
guess we
what
need to
he
find
has.
out if they're just a private organization.
Well, they would share in our funding, our UPK funding, the amount we get per student.
right, but would it offset their cost, or would the
Right.
parent have to pay that full?
Yeah, that's
Partial
right, we don't, right, and then, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, if we,
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
okay. All right, are you done with the report?
I am.
Any more questions for the Assistant Superintendent for Business? No? We'll move on to preliminary budget discussion.
Okay, so the presentation is up on the screen behind the trustee mayors and trustee Valen. And here's a
Is there
copy.
one for Mr. Cruz?
There should be a copy for everybody, including Karen.
You even get a copy.
Oh, I think I gave you enough. I didn't give you enough.
Dave, you give
I
it
think
three.
it ended up on the other side.
Keep going, right?
I have one more, if you need it.
Does Dr. Macaluso have it? Do you have it?
Yes.
I get it.
Okay, so, this is just, I wanted to show you the budget goals and factors, state aid, and our tax cap. So, we are continuing with the goals that we set last year to build on student achievement, strengthen our school leaders and teachers, and address the facilities and the enhancements that we would like to make. We are also continuing to work on our strategic plan in the 5 areas of curriculum and instruction, professional development, staffing, safety, and our construction projects. So what are the budget factors for this year? We know that inflation came in at 4.12% for budget purposes for the 24-25 school year. Health insurance, remember we have 3 health insurance companies. We know 2 of the increases for next year. We're still waiting for the 3rd. And those are anywhere between 13 and 15% increases. Our salary trends, we have 4 collective bargaining organizations. We have a contract with the administrator union that will expire in 24-25. Both civil service unions, contract goes to 25-26 school year, and we are just entering negotiations with the teachers organization. The pension contributions, we know that the teachers' retirement system is going from 9.76% to 10.02%, which is a 0.26% increase, and that the employee retirement system was just released yesterday, and that is going from 13.10% to 15.2%, and that is a 2.1% increase. Because that is more than a 2% increase, that now involves another number that will be included in our tax cap calculation. Any pension contribution that increases more than 2% in a school year from year to year, anything over that 2% can be included in the tax cap calculation as an exclusion. So that, for ERS, there will be an exclusion for next year. So So the governor's proposal for state aid is the only proposal right now that we have. We knew that the governor needs to bridge a budget gap of $4.3 billion. Currently, the proposal from the executive budget states that she would designate $507 million towards foundation aid, but that falls short of the over $900 million that is needed. So how did she come up with her numbers? First, since inflation, as I said, is 4.12%, the governor has used a 10-year average rate of CPI, where she threw out the highest and the lowest CPI number, and then took the average, which is 2.4, which right off the bat creates a deficit in state aid funding. Second is that the calculation is a wealth-based calculation, and therefore 337 districts, which is approximately a little under half of the school districts in New York State, would see a reduction in their aid. Governor Hochul is proposing to eliminate the safe harmless provision. Safe harmless was put into effect by previous governors that assured that no district would receive less in state aid than the prior year. By removing safe harmless, she's basically creating another gap elimination adjustment that some of the seasoned board members will remember in the past that the previous governor had enacted. It was a way to not get the full state aid phased in all at once. By doing that, we're bridging a gap, and we're unfunding the full funding that was just done for foundation aid. So for Greenburgh, that means right now that we would see a $538,772 decrease in our foundation aid according to this new formula. So understanding the tax cap and the tax levy calculation. First, the tax cap is a property tax legislation that requires all districts have to adhere to a formula to calculate the allowable tax levy. The myth is that the cap on the increase in taxes is 2%. The 2% is the limit for the consumer price index or inflation that you can multiply in the formula. But what's true is that the formula determines your tax levy limit, and that most districts in New York State try to stay within their tax levy limit and don't go for a supermajority. So the tax cap factors that we now know for the 24-25 school year is that our tax base growth factor is 1.017%, which is a decrease from 1.024%. Our allowable tax levy growth is the lesser of CPI, which is 4.12%, or 2%. So in the calculation, we have to use 2%. Our pilot payments are added and subtracted in different portions of the calculation, and our pilot payments come from Terry Hill Associates and Fairview Manhattan Housing. And our capital tax levy exclusions, these are obligations for capital expenditures that the district is liable, or that are liable for. Right now, we only have BOCES capital expenses, which comes through construction that Southern Westchester BOCES is doing, and we assume a percentage of those expenses. But in the future, with our energy performance contract and our bond debt service payment, when we take those, that will be included in our calculation.
Can you just tell us what CPI acronym stands for?
Consumer Price Index.
Consumer Price Index. And the pilot, P-I-L-O-T?
Payments in lieu of taxes.
Payment.
Yep. So the real property tax calculation here. The real property tax levy that we did for this school year was $65,272,377. As reported on the previous slide, our tax base growth factor is 1.017%. This is the measure of the change in real property tax value that is due to the change in construction and any capital improvements that have happened in our school district. The pilots receivable for this school year, 23-24, $232,104. And our capital tax levy exclusion, that was for our BOCES capital expenditures, was $36,339. The consumer price index, we are limited to the 2%, so we multiply this by 2% for inflation. And then we would subtract out the pilot payments that we will receive next year. Now, pilots, again, is an acronym for payments in lieu of taxes. These are arrangements between the county and new businesses that come to Greenburgh that will provide economic stimulation and growth to our area. The agreement will allow a business to pay less in taxes over a period of time, which is usually 15 years. After the 15 years, they will then go on to the tax rolls.
Can I give an example? I remember, was it the Tarry Hill that we had to discuss? Because I saw two on here.
I thought it was Fairview Manhattan Housing.
Okay, well, I don't remember discussing Tarry Hill, or maybe that was in there from before I got on the board, but, so basically, everyone who has a residence pay taxes, and when they do these big projects, they came to the board to discuss an agreement where they would give us payment in lieu of taxes, right?
Or
Because
discount, basically.
right, a discount on their taxes, but for us, the benefit, and I was a very new board member, but I understood the benefit to be, these are gonna be families that bring in children that are gonna use the public school system, right? So you make these agreements to get that money at a discounted rate.
It's an enticement for them to come.
Right.
Correct.
Right, exactly. I just thought to explain that.
Thank you.
Because I didn't understand it when I first got on the board, and I was like, what?
Yes.
All these acronyms, okay, sorry. I wrote that.
That's okay. So as I said, the employee retirement system, because the increase is more than 2%, that 0.1% we can include here as an exclusion, and that would be $8,174. Then our capital tax levy exclusion, which would be for the 24-25 year, again, it's for Southern Westchester BOCES, it's $35,075. So our tax levy limit before any prior year carryover is $67,709,778, which is a 3.73% increase. But the Office of the State Comptroller and the real property tax law says that if the total property taxes that were levied in the 23-24 school year were less than what the tax levy limit was, which it was, then a district is allowed to carry over 1.5% of the levy without exclusions. So that for us is $1,007,776. So basically what it's saying, to stay within a simple majority plus one vote, we could levy $68,717,554 if we wanted to, which would be a 5.28% increase from year to year in the total real property tax. And then we have to remember that when we're discussing the levy, and if you want to talk percentages, $652,723 is 1% of the levy. So if you look on the next page, I've given you key terms that will explain the page before if you wanted, again, to know what do each of these line items. So I thought that could make it easier for people who don't live this day in and day out.
That's right. So, are you able to go to the screen before?
Sure.
Or at least on the paper, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth line down, consumer price index. This is this is the lesser of CPI or the allowable tax levy, right?
It's the lesser of CPI or 2%.
Okay.
So CPI is 4.12%. 2% is lower, so we have to use 2%.
Okay, so maybe just for future, before this is posted online, if this gets posted online, could we change the label there? Because it's not really 2%, right? It's not really CPI that's reflected there, it's actually the lower of.
Okay.
CPI versus the other thing.
Got it.
So
Sure.
just want to make sure the label's clear.
So somewhere I'll put in there CPI is 4 point, maybe I'll put it
You already
underneath
say
it.
what CPI is earlier, it's just this
label it.
this line is reflecting the either or, and in this case, the either or is not CPI, because it's higher than 2%, it's the allowable tax levy growth factor, right? I just want to
Okay.
You're talking about
I
this-
know
It's not
what it
actually
is.
CPI.
Yeah.
Yep, I know, right, you're right, that's not
If you-
CPI.
Okay, thank you,
Correct,
sorry.
correct. So then, again, like I said, I gave you the key terms, if you're looking at this later and you can't remember what I said about a definition, this should help you. And again, this will all be posted online, so any of the taxpayers can cross-reference. And then I thought I'd give you a history of inflation and our tax levy. I gave you the last 5 years and the year that we are working on, and I showed you what the inflation or the change in CPI was, okay, for each of those years, what the tax levy growth factor is that we can use, okay, what the simple majority tax cap was, so this was the limit you could go up to for a 50% plus one majority vote, and then what we actually levied. And then in the last column, Dr. Iverson and I were reviewing this, and we thought it would be beneficial to show you levy to levy what the increases were for all of those years. And you'll see 24, 25 actually, the actual tax levy and the levy to levy is blank because you haven't decided on tax levy yet.
Right.
Okay? And then if anybody has any questions, otherwise, thank you.
So what are the next steps?
So the next steps are that we do have for executive session to talk about the wish list, some of the wish list items, priority items of the superintendent. And Dr. Iverson, Dr. Macaluso, and I are compiling numbers in the budget. We will add whatever the wish list items are, and then at the next meeting, we will give you the first draft
Next week,
Okay.
on the 13th.
13.
So I have a question. In reference to levy, so last year we said 3%. And knowing how the, what's going on in our financial world right now, with everything, inflation, everything going up, I mean, it's really a struggle. What is your recommendation as Assistant Superintendent of Business, if you could give a recommendation?
Well, obviously, I would love to stay within the 3.73% because that is the maximum that we could ask for a simple majority, and that would help us in some of the initiatives and things on the wish list that we would like. But I would say at least 3%. I would shoot for, or I wouldn't want to go any lower than 3%.
Okay, any more questions for Ms. Freeman?
I think that trustee Ballard is
Ponder's no.
coming up there. I can see it,
I
but
guess I do have another question in reference to the carryover, and that gives us the total of 68,700. But there's two separate numbers here too.
correct.
Okay, so we know that's okay. All right, so my concern or my wondering would be the carryover going into the 68 million. What would we, I would want to designate and identify that money before we put it as a total. The carryover, the $1 million carryover. So that's just.
Yes, yeah, right.
Because if we were like, oh yeah, it's the greatest budget ever, vote tonight, and it's over, then the $1 million kind of like, not that you, this is not an insult, but this is just me speaking. Then the $1 million just goes away. And then we forget the $1 million was there, and then, I want to be able to make sure we're using it for our students. I want to make sure whatever they need, in whatever building, and whatever capacity, that if that's a carryover, that's something that's going to actually impact the children. So that's just, I just wanted to bring it out there, but I wonder, my wondering is, can we identify what it's gonna be used for before we vote on it? Or does it have to be voting on first, and then we act
No.
on it?
No, you'll know what is in the budget, what is staying there, what is new, before you would vote on adopting it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yes, trustee Dowd?
So I'm not sure how I want to phrase this, I'm just gonna, so I am concerned that we have ongoing recurring costs that are increasing, even if we add nothing.
Right.
I'm highly concerned, and I'm interested, and I don't know if it's possible to know what the projection is beyond next year. If we, so I'm concerned about getting near the limit just with our current status quo items. So I'd be interested in just that number.
Can you give an example
For
of the
next
status quo item that you're thinking of?
I'm talking current levels of staffing and positions and programs.
They're
I'm
all
talking
gonna go up
nothing
every
new.
year, she said.
Right, I'll
No
think
new
about
positions,
Kanye,
no new
I'll think about
programs.
these.
No, but she
Okay.
wants to see a 5-year projection, correct?
And I don't know if that's possible, but I do want to see
Yeah.
some sort of projection to see where that takes us.
At least with
I'd
staffing.
like to know the baseline, you know,
You
status
just
quo
want- You want to
baseline.
assume a high level of
At the new
inflation of
cost.
2%, you know, max out the cap?
I want to see what the current status quo looks like at the new cost for those items, for what's in our current budget. I want to know what
Okay,
that
so
looks like.
regardless of the,
Regardless
what's
of that,
available,
'cause that's the
is what it
status
would
quo.
cost if you kept everything.
Correct.
Can you do that?
So you want to see this budget rolled over with nothing new except for increase in salaries, benefits?
Yes, I'd like, for me, I don't know if that goes in our packet or at the next meeting, I'd just like to see that as the baseline. Because, and I think, President Reyes, we probably need to clarify for the public, when we're talking about this wish list in exec session, it's because it's specific items that can't be discussed in public at this point. The other stuff would get discussed in public, right, as far as new programs, new curriculum, et cetera.
So,
So,
Carol, can you clarify the things that we can and cannot discuss in public?
Yes, so I believe what you are speaking of are any elimination of positions or additions, not so much additions of positions, but the elimination of positions would not be something that you would discuss in public until you've discussed it in executive session. The employment of specific individuals.
So we could discuss in public right now if there's a title of a position that no one's attached to, but it's I wish we had this position.
Yes.
Okay. So we can discuss parts of a wish list in public. It's just that we said Chris Vallen's going to be the assistant soup of, such and such. You can't do that. But if you want a position, assistant soup of such and such, but no one's attached to it, you can say it. That's what counts.
Generally.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something? Trustee Alon?
Yeah, I'm thinking of, sorry, my questions are kind of formalizing as we're rolling here. But on the same terms of status quo and growing the tax levy, is there a way to identify things that would carry forward and things that would be one time? You know, I'm thinking
Yes,
if,
recurring costs.
yes, that,
Yeah.
if there were if we went to the tax levy limit because we had some one-time costs that we needed to tackle in facilities or whatever, could we identify that and prep so that the next year's budget compensates for the one-time, it takes those one-time things out? I'm not sure there's a question there, Lisa.
I
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, before you move on, I do have to ask Mr. Canoes. Got a lot of information coming your way. It's very confusing. Us adults can follow it most of the time. I'm assuming you're not an adult yet, but you may be, so I'm sorry if you are already. Do you have any questions about the finances at all, or anything that's come up maybe amongst the students about money? Not to put you on the spot, feel free to ask a question at another meeting, if at all.
Really not necessarily.
Okay.
Um,
You're just learning the whole ropes, I got it. Okay, sounds good. Is there anything the students may want or been talking about financially?
I feel like the current savings, not necessarily.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll try to ask
Yeah.
and find out.
And then just tell us. We like hearing from the students. It's awesome. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns about the budget, preliminary budget discussion? No, we're gonna revert back. I see Dr. Macaluso here to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Personnel Reports.
Good evening, everyone. So first and foremost, Trustee Washington and I will continue to take a look at the EC agenda, but I do anticipate that we might start having some conversations about bilingual programming, and so for the community to keep in mind, we are at the stage in Greenburgh Central School District where we do need to start taking a look at our programming for our English language learners, and so we anticipate we'll start having some deeper conversations about bilingual education programs in the near future, hopefully at the EC meeting, but I did want the community to become aware that that is something that we are actively working on, and we will continue to map out what that process looks like and again, share all the information with our stakeholders. I want to thank our PYP school leaders. They will be hosting a group of about 30 educators from another district next week to showcase our PYP program and so that that district can learn from us. So it's always a point of recognition and celebration to have other districts come view our work, and so we're thankful for those principals for opening up their doors to this other district. And last and certainly not least, I want to remind our community that MOY middle of year assessments for reading and ELA and math for ready are going to be completed within next week. And so once that information is available, we can also present some of those preliminary data points at our future EC meeting. And that is all for the ASCIP report.
I just have a request and a wish list. So in reference to when we were in school, Tracy, there was an African American Studies course. It was an elective in 12th grade, and I really would like that to come back. And if there's any IB course that really speaks in reference to diversity, multicultural, equity, I would love for that, because I think there was like AP European history or something like that. I'm not sure. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
AP, but is there an
Actually,
IB one too, or no?
Currently for history, there's only one history course.
Okay.
That
What is it?
for history.
It's history of America.
It's just history.
Yes.
For, in terms of diversity, there isn't really a course offered in IB. I know for AP there was, as you talked about, Euro.
Yeah.
There was a few different fields we had for AP, but for IB, we did introduce a few new classes for, I think for the science field. I think this year we had biology, and then there's one more, I think.
The sports management.
Sports medicine.
Yeah.
So there is a few more, but I think as the years go on, more will be introduced. But I think right now staffing, especially from the teachers, we find out that. So yeah.
And it's just the fact that our demographics, I just would like to make sure we highlight who we are serving, and if there's a way that we can bring a course like that. For me, as an African-American woman, when I was in high school, we had that elective to take economics or African studies, and it brought such pride to us to be able to take African studies. And the connection, they actually went to Sierra Leone in Africa, so it was a trip, so it was really nice. But if IB has a little bit more to dig into our cultures and diversity, I would love for that to come to the school. So I just wanted to kind of bring that out as a wish list.
And actually, as a parent of a student, an IB diploma program student, who I was looking at, who's going through the college process and looking at accepted IB courses, there is an African Studies course. There's also history of Africa in the history courses as well that was accepted by some of the schools my daughter is accepted in. Actually, more so than some of the IB classes that we offered, which was interesting. But I don't know if you're going through that process now and looking at some of the offerings. So it's always an option to add.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, and one last thing. Now that I'm talking about diversity, so in reference to our calendar, New York City is, for my first year here, I said, can we add the Muslim holidays, right? And now I know Greenburgh is adding the Muslim holidays. But there's Diwali. So New York City added Diwali also. So as you're thinking of the calendar for this year, can we also think about Diwali? So we have some Muslim holidays. I know we recognize Lunar. Do we recognize Lunar New Year in this district? Next year we will. Okay, and then so there's Diwali also. So it's something to think about as we just embrace the beautiful differences of our children.
I would agree with that. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? When you were out, Dr. Macaluso, Ms. Raymond talked about CBOs at ECP, our UPK program, and our Head Start program.
It's going out Friday, the RFP.
Great. So I was wondering how many CBOs we have. They were talking about Vivi CBOs. We used to have 3, I think. Lois Bronze, Worthington, and our home. I think
Those
were
are the
3 we
ones
had.
that accepted, but the list is more extensive. We send to like 6 to 8. We don't get responses from them, but we do send them,
So there's 6 to 8 CBOs we could use, and then, or that could
that we,
buy in or
that,
whatever.
yes.
And how, do you know how it works financially? Like, we were talking about Vivi is an expensive program. I was just looking up $2,600 to $3,000 in the city. That was a location. I don't know that that's our location, but is the money that they get offsetting our students, or are they taking our students for that rate? Do the parents have to pay a rate? Like, how does that work?
Are we speaking about universal pre-K?
CBOs,
Yes.
Right,
yeah.
CBOs for
CBOs.
universal pre-K.
Mhm.
So there is a allocation that the grant does recommend that you provide to the CBO that if they accept,
Uh-huh.
and then that's what we would give them. So they need to make those arrangements, from what I understand. So
They don't charge the parent anything extra over.
to my knowledge, they do not. That is what they must accept in order to receive that allocation from us, which is state pass-through. But I can verify that.
And then how many seats are, you said Vivi accepted?
No,
No.
we're sending it to Vivi.
No.
Nobody
Oh.
has, it hasn't gone out yet.
Oh.
So,
It's going out Friday.
right,
I
so
don't
with the
know.
RFP
Okay,
process, we will,
You
we
said
will
the RFP
solicit,
Friday, I don't know.
we will solicit CBOs, but
Got
they
it.
don't necessarily have to respond if they're not
Exactly.
interested.
Right, exactly. Okay, and Head Start, we used to have Head Start kids at Lois Bronze. What happened with that?
I'm not aware of Head Start
It didn't
students
happen
at Lois
last
Bronze.
year, but I
Okay.
think the year before we used to use Lois.
So that's all again contingent on what, how that CBO responds, and if they have, if they have interest. This year we do not. All of our Head Start students are with us, and Lois Bronze did not, at least to me, indicate that they had students that were interested in Head Start there.
Yeah,
And I also connected them with the staff at ECP in the summer,
okay.
who coordinate that, and they did not indicate they had Head Start students.
So we were in a meeting, I know you were there with me, and you were there with me. I don't know if it was leadership, I don't know if it was a committee meeting, because we have a lot of different meetings that we're in, but we were talking about Head Starts. I feel like you were there, so maybe it was, or maybe not. We were talking about Head Start, we were talking about 3-year-olds versus 3 and 4-year-olds. You guys remember that? What meeting was that? We have a lot of meetings. But so from my understanding, Head Start, I found, and Dr. Macaluso probably knows this, is 3 and 4-year-olds. The money follows the students. Okay. So how many kids do we have between, and this is gonna come up in exec, but this part is public. How many kids do we have between UPK and Head Start currently?
It's about 65
Okay.
UPK,
Oh, so
about,
65 UPK.
I don't want to switch the numbers and invert, we have about 45 might be the Head Start, and
Okay.
approximately 30 are students who receive,
CPSE.
who receive services through the county.
And
Those are just rough numbers, I have them somewhere, but I didn't bring that information.
it's okay, rough numbers are fine. So in
So our
that,
total enrollment is about 132. across the-
132 at ECP.
Correct.
Okay, great.
We have space for a little bit more, we're not completely filled this year.
Wonderful. Space for more.
When you say space, do you mean physical space, or do you mean?
He
sorry
said
for-
slots, seats,
Slots.
seats,
Thank you.
Chris.
Thank you.
That's why I wanted to clarify the language.
Yes. In that same
Sorry for
discussion,
not moving my
it's okay,
chair.
it's okay. In that same discussion that I'm talking about, that none of us can remember who we were, we talked about, our program having students from out of districts. And correct me if I'm wrong, I understand CPSE can be from out of district.
Correct.
And they're bused, or they have to bring the kid here?
So most of those services are all coordinated through the county. And
Okay.
Typically, the county will provide everything related to students who qualify for those services.
Okay. Head Start, do we have students from out of districts?
I need to confirm that.
Okay, because that came up, and I couldn't answer, I didn't know the answer to that. And UPK are all in districts, Okay. Thank you. I'll move on. Any other questions, comments? No? Next, we have public comments. We have no public comments tonight. Alrighty. Can I get a motion for executive session, please?
I move that we adjourn to executive session to discuss collective bargaining negotiations, employment history of particular persons, personnel matters and or employee records, and matters deemed confidential by state or federal law, including seeking advice from counsel.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7:36 p.m. We are in executive session. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Canoes. How's it going? Okay. Are you stressed?
I'm a little chilly.
How do you stress?
Yeah, right? I said that.
You don't seem stressed at all.
It's unusual.